So far you've completed inking your standing pose, as well as we did another video here for the advanced static pose. In both of these videos I teach you a few different little tricks of the trade as we go. I highly recommend, if you have not seen these two videos, to watch them first. In this video today, what we're going to work on is inking for your walking pose. And since you've already gone through the two other inking videos, this video is going to be really short, right to the point, and it's going to go fast. When I'm inking a lot of croquis or a lot of finished rendering drawings, I'll go through the stages of what pen I'm going to use. So for instance, if I'm going to start with 005, I'll go and hit everything that requires that one pen. And then I'll move on to the next pen as I go, and then I'll end with size 8 down here on her shoes. Now be sure to just check your croquis one last time. Make sure you love everything about it. If there's anything that's kind of weird, I would fix it right now in pencil first and make sure you love it before we start to ink it. Once I start inking, I only want to make a few minor little corrections, but anything major, I should fix it in pencil first. So of course what I've done here is I've drawn this girl off center, but now that I'm ready to ink her, I want to put her on a fresh new piece of paper, and I'm going to go ahead and have her centered. So go ahead and get your plumb line in the middle of the page, very lightly with a 2H pencil, tape her into place, and let's get started. Now as I'm taping my fresh paper here on top of my croquis, I'm noticing on the back of my drawing here I have some scribbles, and here I was practicing drawing like an eyebrow. I want to go ahead and take this off of the light table and erase anything here on the back that might confuse me from the front. Now that I'm almost ready, I just want to make sure my light table is totally clean, and also I wiped it down with a cloth that has a pile on it, so then it'll make it staticky and my paper will stick to the surface really well. Alright, so take out your 005 pen and let's get started. Again, so I'm going to start with the 005 pen, and the first thing I want to do is I want to draw her face. So I'm going to use this on all of her face features, and I want to make sure I like her face before I move on to the rest of the drawing. And then since I'm also going to be using this pen, I'll go ahead and get the underwire, a seam on her bra, and I'll come down here and I'll get the flat lock stitching, as well as this little tiny bow here on her underwear. So here I've done the features for her face. Now I'm going to move down into the underwire and the seam on her bra. And then I'll come down to her underwear and we'll get the flat lock stitch as well as the little bow and then her edge binding. So that was everything that I need to do for 005. Just go back and double check that you have eyebrows, eyes, nose, mouth, the underwire of her bra, the center seam on the arc of her bra, and then down here we got the edge binding as well as the flat lock stitch and the little bow from her underwear. So now we're ready for size 1. We're going to do her face, so her jawline, ears, neck, hairline. And then we'll come back and we'll get the fabric for her bra and underwear. So here I have her ears, her jawline, her neck, and her hairline. So just as a reminder for the bra, you're going to get the scoop for the armhole, as well as the fabric above here and in between. And then make sure on the side here that you're going to stick out slightly further than her skin. And you do not have to do the princess panel yet, because we're going to do that with a larger pen. I want to come down and get the sides on her underwear and down here at the bottom. At this point, we finished using the size 1 marker for the fabric on her underwear, and then we're ready to start moving out to her skin. I want to continue using the size 1 here on her hands because these are such small details inside of here. Now for this hand, I drew in the side of her leg using my size 1 marker, so then I can see when I'm drawing this hand where to stop my lines for her fingers, which are going behind her skin. Later on, when I use size 3 to do her skin, I'll just come right back over the top of this leg. On this side here, I want to use my 005 for getting that little tiny thumbnail, and then I'll finish drawing the fingers behind this thumb. So now that I have that thumbnail in place with my 005, I'll go ahead and move back to my 1, and we'll finish these fingers behind here. Also, when you're drawing the fingers for the thumb, I always recommend start and stop at each knuckle, so it helps you keep those knuckle angles on here. And when you're doing the diamond thumb here that's facing towards the camera, also start and stop at each edge of the diamond to help keep that thumb shaping. The only things left on the body where I would continue using the size 1 would be up here at her belly button and down here at her kneecap. And this will be the kneecap for her walking foot. And then for the kneecap on this side, I would do the same thing we did here on the standing pose. So far we've used the 005 marker for getting all the little details in her face, some details here on her underwear, as well as the thumbnail. And then we moved up to size 1 to get the fabric on her underwear, her jawbone, hairline, and neck. And then we used size 1 to come in here and get her hands as well as these kneecaps. Now we're ready to start getting all of her skin, and then later on we'll get the guidelines. And for these, we're going to use the size 3 pen. Like I've said before, for me, since I'm right-handed and my hand naturally has a really good curve going to this angle, what I'll do is I'll set up my paper and I'll start getting everything on her body that works for my right hand from this side, and then I'll flip her around and I'll start getting the other sides of all these curves that match my hand motion. As well, I want to do short lines, but one clean continuous line, and if there's ever a stopping point, it'll always be at some kind of a corner or a joint. So I'll stop at her elbows, I'll stop when I get to her bra strap, I'll stop when I get to her knees down here. So you get the idea. And if it helps you as a beginner student to get a sense of how I'm approaching this and how I'm drawing my lines, what I'll do is I'll record this and then I'll speed it up to 300%, and then you can just watch it all the way through and then hit pause to do your own. Oh well. So now with my number 3 pen, I've inked her hair, outside of her hair, all of her skin coming all the way down. And then I also went ahead and I inked the princess panel curves right here since I have to freehand them anyways. So basically I've done everything except I have not done my straight guidelines, which I'll use a ruler for, and I haven't done anything with the shoes yet. The next thing that we'll do together is we'll put in all the guidelines using a ruler. For me, I'm noticing that her shoulder here is a little too rounded off. I want to kind of sharpen it back up. And I feel like this side of her neck is a little bit too wide. So I'm going to fix these two locations first. And then when I come in and put in my guidelines, I could just draw them right over the top of those fixes. So what I've done is I put a little whiteout on her neck and shoulder. Then I came back and I used a ruler to line this back up with her iris and got a nice clean line just using a pencil. And then over here, I was also getting a crisp line here matching back up with her trapezius muscles, and then I put in the guideline here for the seam of her sleeve, and then I just lightly came in with pencil so I can just make the shoulder a little more pointed and a little more athletic looking. And then for her neck, I'll just go ahead and use my ruler so I don't accidentally bow it outwards. Right here for her bra strap, I like when it sticks up just above her skin, so it also looks like a spaghetti strap from an evening dress. So I'll just white out that last little bit right there. So I can come back in with my size 1, and I'll get this outside of the fabric from her bra. And I can make it stick up slightly higher than her shoulder skin. At this stage now, we're ready to start adding in our guidelines. And remember, on your croquis, you don't want to have any pencil on here because this will start to smear and smudge around. So I'm going to come back and just erase this little bit of pencil guidelines that I put in here before I come down and start putting fresh ink right on top of this. So continuing with your size 3, let's go ahead and get some of our vertical guidelines. And again, since I'm right-handed, I'll start from this side, I'll ink it and move my ruler away from the ink as I come across. So for this shoulder seam, this is for the sleeve seam. Officially it's aiming back to her waist as a straight line, but it's only a straight line from here down towards her armpit. So I like to start just above her armpit and get that line all the way to the shoulder. We'll move over here to the princess panel, and we'll also turn this in where it'll look like it's a strap. Remembering now that on the static pose, the princess panel would be a straight line, but here we have to pivot at the apex of her bust. So I drew down to the apex of the bust. Now I'll pivot my ruler to finish, and then I'll just double check one last time, make sure that that does look even. Again, for the center seam, I like to go underneath her bra fabric. And then we'll do the other princess panel. And then we'll finish by getting this shoulder sleeve seam here. While we're letting this ink dry, I'll come down here and we'll get the center seam for her underwear. Again, what I like to do is I like to miss the edge stitching, so the center front seam will go under the edge stitching and also underneath the bow, but then it needs to finish here all the way on top of her fabric down to the center of her crotch. Now we can come back up here and we'll get our horizontal balance lines. So we need the shoulder level, and again I like to start and stop just before I get to her bra strap, so it looks like it's going underneath her bra strap. We'll come down here to the rib cage and just go all the way across. Top of the hip bones. Here I'm doing just a little start and stop right around the belly button area. We need the full hip, and again I'll start and stop just before the edge binding, so it looks like it's going underneath the edge binding. You still need to put the full hip line all the way across her underwear, even if you are going to stop just before the edge binding. And then let's come down here and we'll finish by getting her knee level. This is what you'll be using as a gauge for your hems on your different dresses and skirts. And on my girl, I'm having trouble seeing exactly where is the guideline for the outside ankle, so I'm going to make it darker on the paper underneath. So back here on my original in pencil, I went ahead and got the guidelines for the outside ankles, as well as the floor and the plumb line here, so it'll be easier to see as we continue to ink these guidelines. So continuing with our size 3, let's come down here and we'll get the ankle for the walking foot. And down here for her support leg. And then we can get the floor. I haven't drawn my shoe yet, so I'll just draw the floor from here to here. And then we'll come back and draw the shoe. For the shoe, I'll come back here and I'll use my size 8. And usually on a Croquis, you don't really do stylized shoes, but since we did some Mary Janes on here with the ankle strap, let's go ahead and continue using those. And then down here at the tip of her shoe, I have just this little bump on here to show kind of like a reflection. And I'll do that here with my size 3 marker. And then let's finish up using our size 3, and we'll come back up here and we'll get our guidelines for doing lingerie or for doing pleats on pants, and also for continuing the princess panel down here into the leg. Now that I've finished with getting all the guidelines, I want to get a little bit of this plumb line, but we do not want to confuse it here with the center fronts. So what I'll do is I'll get the plumb line back up here at her forehead. And what I'll do is I want this to be pretty subtle, so I'll switch back to my 001. And we'll get just a little bit of this plumb line at her forehead. And I'm making sure my ruler is lined up here, and I'm also lining it up all the way back down at her feet. So it's just a really short area here at the top. And then down at the bottom, we want some of the plumb line here as well. So let's go ahead and draw it from the ankle level down below her foot. Now let's just go and check everything one last time. So we have her levels at her ankles, we've got her shoes drawn in, both of her legs, knees and kneecaps, the knee guideline, her hands, fingernails, underwear, everything's in its place, all the guidelines, belly button, all the way up to the bra area, the seams for her sleeves, her armpits coming out. And then we have all the features on her face and the guidelines for her hair and the plumb line at her forehead. And that's everything for inking the walking pose. Be sure to scan this and turn this in to me as part of your homework.